54 countries, 1.4 billion people, 30 million square kilometers, the second largest continent after Asia. Africa is not a country. The statement should not need repeating, but it does. Western media reduces it to safari photos and poverty porn. Aid campaigns show starving children. Travel influencers post wildlife and sunsets. Both perspectives miss the complexity, the diversity, and the reality of a continent where Lagos has more tech startups than most European cities. Where Kigali is cleaner than Paris, where Morocco looks nothing like Mozambique, and where speaking of African culture makes as much sense as speaking of Asian culture when comparing Japan to Yemen. This is Africa, the cradle of humanity, where Homo sapiens originated 190,000 years ago in Ethiopia before spreading globally, where empires rose and fell before Europe knew how to read, where Timbuktu's libraries held manuscripts while Europe burned books, and where the scramble for Africa at the 1884 Berlin Conference carved the continent into colonial territories. Borders were drawn with rulers by men who had never been there. The divisions created conflicts that persist today. Africa is full of contradictions. Poverty and wealth exist on the same street. Ancient traditions and cutting-edge technology exist in the same city. Post-colonial struggles and Pan-African optimism coexist. Chinese investment and Western guilt mix together, and are ready to see Africa beyond the ready to see Africa. Beyond the headlines, hit that subscribe button to Passport Unfolded. We are exploring 40 places across a continent most people misunderstand. Let's begin. The mother city sits at Africa's southern tip, where two oceans meet, the Atlantic and Indian Oceans colliding at Cape Point. Cape Town is known for Table Mountain. And the city spreads below with wealth. The city spreads below with wealth concentrated along the coast. The townships sprawl on the Cape Flats. The inequality is visible from the summit. And apartheid's spatial legacy persists despite democracy arriving in 1994. The waterfront is the V&A with shopping, restaurants, and tourists. The development is glossy and sanitized. The District 6 Museum documents the forced removals. 60,000 people displaced under apartheid. The neighborhood was demolished and the land remained empty for decades. The guilt is visible in the vacant lots. The The mountain deserves a separate entry. Table Mountain is a sandstone plateau with rock dating 360 million years old. The formation is unique and the biodiversity is exceptional. Over 1,400 plant species, and many endemic and found nowhere else. The hikes are numerous. Platterclip Gorge is the most direct, with a steep scramble lasting 3 hours up. India Venster is technical, with chains assisting and significant exposure. The views expand with altitude. The dasses are rock hyrax, appearing rodent-like, but actually the closest relatives to elephants evolutionarily. The connection is improbable, but genetically accurate. The cable car rotates 360 degrees during ascent, offering views across the city, ocean, and Cape Peninsula. The weather changes rapidly, with clouds descending without warning. The mountain creates its own climate, and the conditions are dangerous for unprepared hikers. The smoke that thunders. Victoria Falls is 1,708 meters wide and 108 meters high. The Zambezi River plunges into the gorge. The spray is visible from kilometers away, with mist rising and rainbows forming. The roar is constant. The flow is seasonal. April and May peak after the rainy season with 500 million liters per minute. The volume is overwhelming. The falls sit on the border, with Zimbabwe's side offering views and Zambia's side getting soaked. The Devil's Pool allows swimmers to approach the edge during low water, though the drop is fatal if the current catches you. Livingston named them after Queen Victoria, as the colonial naming erased the Lozi name Mosi Oatunya. Tourism is significant. Both countries depend on it. The facilities are developed with helicopter flights offering aerial views and bungee jumping from the bridge connecting the countries. (14,700 square kilometers of savanna define this park. The migration is the defining feature. The wildebeest move in herds numbering millions, following the rains and grass. The ancient patterns continue as they have for millennia. The herds cross the Mara River where crocodiles wait. The predation is spectacular and brutal. It is natural. The big cats are numerous, with lions in prides, leopards solitary, and cheetahs hunting in daylight. The diversity is exceptional. The Serengeti is expensive with park fees, accommodation costs, and game drives. The safari costs thousands, making the experience elite. And the conservation is funded by tourism. The model works economically, though the ethics are debated. The access is limited by price, and the wildlife is viewable only to those who can afford it. The Maasai were displaced when the park was created. The land was taken, the compensation was insufficient, and the resentment persists. The conservation success was built on human displacement. The Serengeti's northern extension extends the ecosystem. The border is arbitrary. but the ecosystem is continuous and the migration crosses both. The Mara is Kenya's premier park with excellent game viewing. The big five are present: elephants, lions, leopards, buffalo, and rhinos. The designation is colonial, based on hunting difficulty rather than conservation importance. The hot air balloons launch at dawn, floating over the savanna. The perspective shows the landscape's scale, with animals appearing small below. The Maasai communities surround the reserve. The conservancies allow grazing with the model balancing wildlife and pastoral needs. The income from tourism supports communities. The Mara is crowded during migration season with 50 vehicles surrounding a single kill. The experience is diminished by numbers, and the wildlife is stressed by attention. The regulations are insufficient and enforcement is weak. Africa's highest peak rises to 5,895 meters. The summit is glaciated, and though the ice is retreating, climate change is visible, and the glaciers are predicted to disappear within decades. Kilimanjaro is volcanic, dormant, not extinct, with 3 cones. Kibo is the highest, while Mwenzi and Shira are lower. The climb is non-technical, with no ropes or ice axes required on most routes. This makes it accessible, and the summit attempt attracts thousands annually. The altitude is the challenge. Acute mountain sickness is common. Acclimatization is essential. Pole, meaning slowly in Swahili, describes the deliberate pace. The porters carry everything: tents, food, and water. The loads are excessive, the wages are low, and tipping is expected. The ethics are questionable. Kilimanjaro is a bucket list item. The achievement is marketed, and the summit photo is desired. The accomplishment is genuine despite commercialization. The altitude affects everyone, regardless of fitness. The Spice Island is an archipelago off Tanzania's coast. The history as a trading hub shows Arab, Persian, Indian, and African influences mixing. The result is Swahili culture. Stone Town is UNESCO listed with narrow streets and carved doors. The architecture is coral stone, with buildings crumbling beautifully. The decay is romantic to visitors, but problematic to residents. The slave trade operated from here, and the market is now a tourist attraction. The history is sanitized, and the horror is reduced to museum displays. And the beaches are white sand with turquoise water. The resorts are numerous. The tourism is developed with Nungwi and Kendwa being crowded, while the east coast is quieter. The tides are extreme, with water receding kilometers. The spices are cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon. The tours visit plantations, and guides explain uses. The colonial economy's legacy persists. The cash crops replaced subsistence farming, creating dependence that continues. The Red City has buildings in pink-orange colors from local stone. The Medina is walled, and the souks are labyrinthine with intense commerce. Haggling is expected, and tourists are targeted. Jemar El Fna is the square and is UNESCO listed as intangible heritage. The square features snake charmers, storytellers, henna artists, and orange juice vendors. The chaos is organized. The performers expect payment for photos. The interaction is transactional. The riads are traditional houses with interior courtyards. The architecture is beautiful, and many are converted to hotels. The accommodation is atmospheric, though the maze of streets is disorienting. The tanneries are medieval, with leather dyed in stone vats. The colors are vibrant, and the smell is overwhelming. Mint is offered to visitors to mask the odor of pigeon dung and chemicals. Marrakech has tourists, millions annually. The authenticity is performed, and the culture is commodified. The residents serve visitors, and the economy is dependent. The world's largest hot desert covers most of North Africa at 9 million square kilometers. The Moroccan Sahara is accessible from Merzouga. The dunes of CHEBE rise 150 meters. The sand is orange-red, and the landscape is photographed endlessly. The sunrise and sunset are particularly captivating. The camel treks are touristy, with short rides to camps. The experience is sanitized and comfortable, with the authentic desert life absent. The heat is extreme, with summer temperatures exceeding 50 degrees. The tourism is seasonal, with winter being mild and nights cold, dropping below freezing. The desert is expanding. Desertification is increasing, and climate change and overgrazing accelerate the spread. The Sahel suffers the consequences. The Blue City has buildings painted blue. There, the tradition is Andalusian. Jewish refugees brought the practice in the 15th century. The continuation maintains identity. The Medina is photogenic, with every corner being Instagram ready. The blue is overwhelming in concentration, but genuine in tradition. The town is relaxed, and hash is available. The Rif Mountains surround it and are famous for cannabis cultivation. The economy is informal, and enforcement is selective. The hiking is excellent, with the Akchua waterfalls nearby. The trails lead to pools, and the landscape is mountainous and green. The contrast with desert Morocco is striking. CHEFCHAOUEN is a tourist trap that remains pleasant. The commercialization is acknowledged, and the crowds are manageable compared to Marrakech. The pace is slower, and the atmosphere is maintained despite the photography tours and day trippers flooding in from Tangier and Fes. 22 million people live here, the largest city in the Arab world. The traffic is apocalyptic, the pollution is visible, the noise is constant, and the chaos functions somehow. Cairo is known for Islamic architecture with numerous mosques. The citadel dominates the city. The Muhammad Ali Mosque is visible across the city with Ottoman design and a spacious interior. The lighting is beautiful. The Egyptian Museum holds treasures, including Tutankhamun's gold and mummies. The collection is vast, though the displays are outdated. The Grand Egyptian Museum near the pyramids is opening soon with modern facilities. The transfer is ongoing. The Nile flows through Cairo, dividing the city. The feluccas sail on it. The bridges connect the banks. The river is less central than historically, and the city sprawls beyond the banks. Cairo is poverty and wealth adjacent. The inequality is visible. The economy is struggling with high inflation. The pound is devaluing, and subsidies are essential. The political stability is fragile. "4,500 years old, the pyramids are the only surviving ancient wonder. The Great Pyramid was built from 2 million blocks averaging 2 tons each. Giza is scale. The pyramids are larger than photos suggest. The approach reveals their true size. The Sphinx sits in front with a missing nose. The damage predates Napoleon. The erosion shows age. The site is touristy, with camel rides, touts, and constant pressure. The experience requires patience and firm refusals. The pyramids sit at Cairo's edge, with suburbs encroaching. The urban sprawl is visible from the monuments. The ancient and modern are uncomfortably close. The theories persist about aliens and lost civilizations. The explanations disrespect Egyptian engineering. The evidence shows ramps, workers, and organization. The achievement is human and remarkable without supernatural intervention. The pyramids justify the tourist hassle. The world's greatest open-air museum has an unmatched concentration of ancient monuments. Luxor is known for Karnak Temple, with a hyperstyle hall featuring 134 columns. The space is designed to overwhelm, and the scale succeeds. Luxor Temple sits in the town center. The mosque was built atop it. The layers of history are visible: Pharaonic, Roman, and Islamic. The Valley of the Kings holds 63 tombs. Tutankhamun's is the most famous, though the smallest. The treasures were removed, and the tomb itself is underwhelming after the hype. The hieroglyphics and colors are impressive in better tombs. Hatshepsut's temple is terraced into cliffs, the female pharaoh's monument showing her power. Hot air balloons launch at sunrise, floating over temples, villages, and fields. The perspective shows the landscape's scale and the Nile's agricultural ribbon in the desert. Luxor is tourist-dependent, and the touts are aggressive. The pressure is exhausting. (6,650 kilometers makes this the longest river globally. The river flows north through 11 countries. The source is in Burundi or Rwanda, depending on the definition. The Nile is civilization. Egypt's existence depends on the annual flood. The agriculture is confined to the river's banks, with the desert starting meters from the water. The Aswan High Dam controls the flow and ends the floods. It enabled year-round irrigation and created Lake Nasser. The dam displaced 100,000 Nubians. It submerged temples. UNESCO relocated Abu Simbel. The dam is controversial: electricity generation and water control versus ecological damage and cultural loss. Ethiopia's Grand Renaissance Dam threatens Egypt's water supply. The conflict is brewing. The treaties are colonial era, and the nations disagree. The water scarcity is increasing. Climate change is reducing flow. The future is uncertain and potentially violent. The isolated oasis sits near Libya's border, 500 kilometers from Cairo. The access is by a long desert drive. SIWA has date palms, olive groves, and salt lakes. The water is brackish and not potable. Fresh water comes from springs. The mud brick architecture is traditional, with buildings melting slowly. Rain is rare but destructive. Alexander the Great visited the Oracle of Amun here, seeking confirmation of divinity. The temple ruins remain. The Berber culture persists, and the Siwi language is distinct from Arabic. The isolation maintained traditions. Tourism is growing, and the remoteness previously protected it. The accessibility is increasing, and the character is threatened. The salt lakes allow floating. The water is dense, and the landscape is otherworldly. SIWA is authentic, though preservation is challenged by development. The balance is precarious. The future depends on whether tourism respects or destroys what makes SIWA unique. The river never reaches the ocean. The OKAVANGO flows into the Kalahari Desert and spreads into 15,000 square kilometers of channels, lagoons, and islands. The water is seasonal, arriving during the dry season. The timing enables life. The delta is a wildlife paradise with elephants, hippos, crocodiles, and lions. The diversity is exceptional. The Mokoro is a traditional dugout canoe. Polers navigate the channels silently and close to wildlife. The perspective is low and immersive. The camps are expensive, with luxury lodges and tented camps. The conservation model is high cost, low impact. Few visitors pay premium prices. The exclusivity is an environmental strategy, debatable in equity, but effective in conservation. Botswana managed tourism carefully by limiting numbers and maintaining quality. The approach preserves the delta while generating revenue. The model is successful compared to countries prioritizing volume over sustainability. The elephant park has a population of 50,000 elephants, the highest density in Africa. The herds are visible daily along the river, drinking, crossing, and impressing with their numbers. However, the situation is problematic. The vegetation is stripped and the trees are dying. The overpopulation is debated, and the boat safaris on Chobe River offer close approaches to hippos, crocodiles, and birds. The perspective is different from land-based game drives. The predators are present, lions and leopards, with excellent game viewing. The park is accessible from Kasane, the town near Victoria Falls. The tourism connection brings visitors. The infrastructure is good. Chobe represents conservation success and challenge. The elephant population recovered from hunting, but now exceeds carrying capacity. The culling is debated. The solutions are imperfect. The management requires difficult choices, balancing ecology and ethics. The Salt Pan Park is spectacular. ETOSHA covers 4,730 square kilometers of salt pan that is white and flat. The reflections create mirages, and the landscape is alien. The waterholes attract wildlife, making the viewing easy. The animals are concentrated with elephants, lions, and rhinos visible. The endangered species are protected, and poaching is fought aggressively. Self-drive is possible with good roads. The lodges are inside and outside the park, making the accessibility democratic compared to Botswana's exclusivity. The dry season is best. The animals depend on waterholes, and the viewing is predictable. The wet season transforms the pan, filling with water. Flamingos arrive, and the landscape changes completely. ETOSHA is Namibia's flagship park. Tourism supports the economy, as the conservation is funded by visitors. The model works, and the wildlife populations are stable. The management is effective, and the country's conservation approach is respected internationally. The oldest desert exists for 80 million years. The sand dunes are massive and ancient. The colors are orange-red from iron oxide. The formations are shaped by wind and constantly move, yet seem permanent. The Skeleton Coast is the northern section, with shipwrecks scattered about. The fog supports desert-adapted life, lichens and beetles with remarkable survival strategies. The desert extends to the ocean. The sand dunes meet the Atlantic. The juxtaposition is dramatic, the landscape is photogenic, and the emptiness is complete. The Namib is harsh, with almost zero rainfall. The temperatures are extreme, and the environment is hostile. Life is sparse but persistent. The desert is wilderness. The experience requires self-sufficiency. The isolation is total. The nights show stars unobscured by light pollution. The Milky Way is visible as a band across the sky. The dunes reach 300 meters, among the tallest globally. Big Daddy and Dune 45 are the most famous. The climb is exhausting with soft sand and steps sliding back. The progress is slow. And the summit reveals the dead Vlei, a white clay pan dotted with dead trees. The camel-thorn acacias stand for centuries, killed when the river changed course. The wood is preserved by the dry climate. The sunrise is essential. The light paints the dunes orange, and the shadows define the ridges. The colors shift with the angle. Photographers arrive pre-dawn for the shot. SOSSUSVLEI is iconic. The images define Namibia's tourism marketing. The reality matches the photos. The landscape is spectacular. The experience is worth the early wake-up and the difficult access. The corrugated gravel roads test vehicles and patience. "20 places down, 20 more to go." If you are seeing Africa beyond the stereotypes, subscribe to Passport Unfolded for more journeys through the world's most misunderstood places. South Africa's flagship park covers 19,000 square kilometers, the size of Israel. The wildlife is diverse, and the Big Five are present. KRUGER is accessible with tarred roads, rest camps with restaurants and shops. The infrastructure is developed, and self-drive is possible. The experience is democratic and affordable by safari standards. Private reserves border KRUGER's west. The fences are removed, and wildlife moves freely. The luxury lodges offer guided drives, the exclusivity is expensive, and the game viewing is better. The guides are skilled, and the access is closer. Poaching is a problem. Rhinos are targeted for horns. The demand from Asia drives the trade. The prices exceed gold by weight. The crime is organized, and the rangers are outgunned. KRUGER is a conservation and tourism success. The model is replicable, and the challenges are persistent. The balance between access and preservation is constantly negotiated. The Green Canyon extends 26 kilometers long and 800 meters deep. The third largest canyon globally. The vegetation is lush, rivers flow, and waterfalls are numerous. From the three rondavels are rock formations resembling traditional huts. The views from viewpoints are spectacular. The road is accessible and the tourism infrastructure is good. God's Window offers views across the low veld. The escarpment drops sharply. The clouds are below on clear days. The perspective shows the elevation change from highlands to savanna. The canyon is part of the panorama route, a scenic drive with waterfalls and viewpoints. The tourism is managed well, and the facilities are good. The experience is accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford safari lodges. BLYDE River Canyon is underrated internationally, overshadowed by wildlife parks, but deserving of more attention. The scenery is exceptional. The coastal stretch extends from Mossel Bay to Storms River. 300 kilometers of varied landscape with beaches, forests, lagoons, and mountains. The route is a road trip where the journey is the destination. The towns are small, Knysna and Plettenberg Bay, with a relaxed atmosphere. The tourism is domestic and international. The Tsitsikar-Kama National Park protects indigenous forest. The Storms River mouth is crossed by a suspension bridge. The hike is spectacular and the forest is ancient with massive trees. The garden route is known for activities, surfing, hiking, whale watching, and shark cage diving. The options are numerous, and the marketing focuses on adventure tourism. The execution has variable quality. The route is beautiful and accessible with good infrastructure. The experience is reliable, and the crowds are manageable, except during December to January, when South Africans holiday en masse. The capital sits at 2,400 meters elevation. The altitude is noticed and the air is thin. Acclimatization is needed. Addis is a contrast of modern buildings and tin shack neighborhoods. The development is uneven and the inequality is visible. The National Museum holds Lucy, the 3-million-year-old hominid skeleton. The evidence of human evolution is profound in its significance. The Mercato is a massive market, allegedly the largest in Africa. The commerce is chaotic, with everything sold. The crowds are overwhelming, and pickpockets are present. The Ethiopian food is injera, a spongy flatbread with wat stews. The flavors are complex. Berbere spice mix defines the cuisine. And the coffee ceremony is traditional with beans, roasted, ground, and brewed. The beverage is served in 3 rounds. The ritual is social. Addis is a hub. Ethiopian Airlines connects Africa globally. The airport is modern, though the city is less so. The gap between aspiration and reality is visible. The massive eroded plateau has jagged peaks and deep valleys. The landscape is dramatic with volcanic rock formations eroded by water and wind over millennia. The trekking is multi-day, with trails crossing the highlands. Guides are mandatory. Scouts are armed against bandits, supposedly. The security is theater more than real threat. The wildlife is endemic. Gelada baboons are numerous and are the only primate that is primarily grass-eating. The bleeding heart baboons also inhabit the area. And the Ethiopian wolf is the rarest canid globally, with fewer than 500 surviving. The Simien Mountains hold a population, and sightings are possible. The views are exceptional. The escarpment drops hundreds of meters. The perspective shows the landscape's scale. The Simien Mountains are undervisited. Tourism is limited, though the potential is enormous. The infrastructure is improving. The experience is authentic, and the beauty rivals more famous mountain ranges. In the 1950s, and destroyed native in the 1950s, and destroyed native species, the ecological disaster is complete, though the economic benefit is undeniable. The complexity is typical. The lake is polluted with sewage and agricultural runoff. The water quality is declining. The hyacinth choke sections and the invasive species is spreading. And the fishing is artisanal with wooden boats and nets. The catch is sold fresh or smoked. The economy is informal. The islands are inhabited. Ukerewe and Rubondo contain isolated communities accessible only by boat. The development is limited. Lake Victoria is a life source and is dying. The water is essential, though the management is inadequate. The countries cooperate insufficiently. The tragedy of commons is playing out. The future is uncertain. The solutions require regional cooperation that political tensions prevent. The cleanest city in Africa has plastic bags banned. The streets are swept, and motorcycle taxis wear helmets and follow traffic rules. The order is surprising after regional chaos. Kigali is built on hills. The city spreads across them with valleys between. The geography is dramatic. And the Genocide Memorial documents 1994, when Hutu extremists killed 800,000 Tutsi and moderate Hutu in 100 days. The efficiency was industrial, and the horror is comprehensive. The graves hold 250,000 bodies. The memorial is necessary, painful, and educational. The history is recent, and the survivors are living. The perpetrators are also present. The reconciliation is ongoing, forced, and the alternative is continued conflict. Rwanda is authoritarian, with Paul Kagame controlling everything. The development is visible, and the economic growth is real. However, the freedoms are limited, and the criticism is silenced. The trade-off is debated: stability and development versus democracy and rights. And the alternative gorilla destination has cheaper permits at $900. The experience is similar to Rwanda, though the forest is denser. The name is accurate, the vegetation is thick, and the trails are steep. Windi is biodiverse with an ancient forest and numerous species. The gorillas are the draw, but the ecosystem is exceptional. The communities surround the park. The Batwa pygmies were displaced when it was created. The compensation was insufficient, and the resentment persists. The tourism revenue does not reach them. The conservation local community conflict is typical. The lodges have variable quality from budget to luxury. The options are more diverse than Rwanda's upscale focus. The permits are easier to obtain with better availability. The Uganda Wildlife Authority manages well. Windi is less polished than Rwanda. The infrastructure is rougher and the experience is more adventurous. The trade-off between comfort and authenticity is clear. The lake of small birds, though the birds are less notable than the scenery. Bunyonyi has 29 islands with terraced hillsides. The water is deep and is supposedly bilharzia-free. The swimming is supposedly safe, though the claims are questionable. The lake is a relaxation destination after gorilla trekking. The lodges are scattered across islands. Canoes transport guests. The atmosphere is quiet. The islands hold histories. Punishment Island, where unmarried pregnant girls were abandoned. Left to die or be claimed by men too poor to afford bride price. The practice ended in the colonial era. The horror is recent. The lake is beautiful. Tourism is growing, and the development is controlled somewhat. The lodges respect the landscape. The experience is peaceful, and the prices are reasonable. Bunyonyi is a layover, with few staying long. The location is perfect for decompressing after intense trekking. The scenery is gentle after the mountains. Separate from Zanzibar Island entry, the town itself deserves focus. Stone Town is a labyrinth of narrow alleys and dead ends. The navigation is difficult, and getting lost is inevitable. The doors are famous with carved wood and brass studs. The craftsmanship is intricate, and each door is unique. The entrances indicate wealth, status, and religion. The old fort is Omani. The slave market is now an Anglican cathedral built on the site. The history is layered and uncomfortable. The tour guides explain the chains and conditions. The history is sanitized somewhat, but still brutal. The food is Swahili fusion with Indian spices, Arabic influences, and African ingredients. The seafood is fresh. Forodhani Gardens night market serves Zanzibar pizza. The name is misleading, but the experience is authentic. Stone Town is UNESCO listed. The preservation is challenged by development. The buildings are crumbling. The restoration is expensive, and the funding is insufficient. The island nation has 115 islands with 40,000 residents. The population is concentrated on Mahé, Praslin, and Ladigi. Seychelles is a luxury tourism destination for honeymoons and resorts. The beaches are white sand with granite boulders and turquoise water. The images appear everywhere, and the reality matches the brochure. The Vallée de Mai on Praslin is a UNESCO site with coco de mer palms. All the nuts are shaped suggestively and are the largest seeds globally. The palms are endemic and protected. The islands are expensive with everything imported. The cost is high and the exclusivity prices out-budget travelers. The conservation is funded by luxury tourism. The model works economically. The diving is excellent, with healthy coral reefs and diverse marine life. The protection is strict. Seychelles is paradise. The term is accurate. The experience is exclusive. The beauty is undeniable. The authenticity is limited, and the culture is overshadowed by tourism. The local Creole population serves visitors. Africa is not simple. The narratives that the West tells about Africa are wrong. Not completely, but wrong enough to be misleading. Poverty porn ignores the middle class. The safari photos ignore the cities. The headlines about conflict ignore peace. The charity appeals ignore the innovation. Africa has problems. Corruption, conflict, poverty, underdevelopment. Post-colonial struggles, resource exploitation, and climate change impacts are real and documented. The issues are serious. But Africa also has growth. 6 of the world's 10 fastest-growing economies are African. Technology hubs exist in Nairobi, Lagos, and Cape Town. Mobile payment systems are more advanced than Western banking. Solar power leapfrogs grid infrastructure. Medical innovations solve local problems. The continent is young, with a median age of 19. The population will double by 2050 to 2.5 billion. Though the youth are educated, connected, and ambitious, they are launching businesses, creating culture, and demanding change. Africa is not rising. Africa is there. It never fell. It was pushed down by colonialism, exploitation, and borders drawn in Berlin. The narrative of rising implies it was down and implies help was needed. It implies Western intervention saved it. Africa saved itself. Africans are building their future without permission, without waiting for aid, or without following prescribed development models. The tourism shows Africa's beauty, the wildlife, landscapes, beaches, and ancient history. All of it is real and worth visiting. But that is 5% of Africa. The other 95% is people living, working, building, struggling, succeeding, failing, and trying again. 40 places, safaris and cities, beaches and deserts, ancient ruins and modern capitals. All real, all Africa. All worth understanding beyond the headlines, built beyond the stereotypes and beyond the single story that reduces a continent to poverty or wildlife. Subscribe to Passport Unfolded. Africa is 54 countries. We have shown you 40 places. There are thousands more. The journey continues. Join us.